And here we are
Ooh, that
welcoming
must be
Joe
me.
now. Yeah, that's definitely you. Joe, looks like we don't have a speaker slide. That's fine. Welcome, Joe, to our
I do have my speaker slide.
conference. Then awesome. You are all good to go. And take us there.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Guadagno. As you notice, one of the things Magnus talked about was being present, being ready, being prepared. He talked about dressing. This is my first real day dressing. So I put on full speaker gear, my polo shirt, my Quicken Loans outfit. I even got pants and shoes. You can't see it, but I got pants and shoes on, which is uh, very unusual nowadays with all of our current scenario. So I'm here to talk about preparation and feedback. Hopefully, I'll be able to cover a lot more with the everything that Magnus and Monica talked about because, in all honesty, they stole some of my thunder. But I'm super passionate about this topic and I have a lot to cover. So let's start off with a little bit about me. My name is Joe Guadagno. You can follow me on multiple social media platforms at J Guadagno on Twitter, Facebook, josephguadagno.net, LinkedIn, Joseph Guadagno. Or if you want to learn more about me or some of my presentations, check out jjg.me/about me. So preparation. You've heard Magnus mention it. You've heard Monica talk about it. There's a lot to going into preparation. It's kind of funny that I got asked to do this talk because I am super when it comes to preparing for talks. I have a certain regime of things I do. I go through a certain kind of rehearsal just amongst myself when I have a talk, whether I'm creating a new one or working on an existing one. And we're going to kind of walk through some of that. I had one of my coworkers earlier this week asked me about public speaking because he knows I speak a lot at conferences and he was trying to get into it. So I sat there and talked during our one-on-one for almost a half hour. And at the end of the one-on-one, I told him, it's like, this is perfect. I just literally gave the talk I'm giving in 4 days to you without any memory or any preparation for it. So as Monica said earlier, granted he wasn't my pet, but he was my team member in the unfortunate trial run for this. So talking about preparation, it's important. This tweet came out, I think it was last Friday, if I remember correctly. And then me being the Weisenheimer I put in, I guess I should start preparing. In all honesty, for a lot of my talks, I prepare way out there, assuming it's not an impromptu. Like if I'm at a conference and someone wants to learn about technology, why I might just go and start talking about it right there. But for something like this or another conference talk, I actually start looking out. Could be weeks, could be months out ahead of time to start preparing. So I'm going to walk you through a lot of those tips and a lot of the things I do. The first start is content. And if you notice, I only have one focus point on the majority of my slides. So I sat through that presentation that Magnus gave about, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago when we were at the CSharpCorner conference in India. He gave an impromptu talk about that, which was awesome. But as Dave McCarter mentioned, he had to go rewrite his scripts. I had to go rewrite all my slides, and I only had like 2 hours left to go and do it. So they all went from this bright white to this darker, more eye-pleasing. This one's mostly white because there's simple images in it. But content is the key. Sit down and think about it. Think about it like you're doing a book report or you're planning out your next software project or you're planning out a wedding or some other festivity, think about what you want to cover, think about what you want to do. Put that together in a series of notes, whether they be mental, whether you use OneDrive, or whether you use something like old fashioned pen and paper. So, this is a screenshot of my notepad that I took when I was actually preparing for this content. I started outlining some of the stuff I wanted to do. You'll see that there's the preparation steps. I started doing the basic outline where we talked about content, which you saw a slide that said content. Talked about the outline where we're right now talking about outline. We'll eventually get into the plan, the scripting, the rehearsal, time, commitment, etc. But I write down everything what I want to cover, and then I kind of rearrange it. Sometimes I do it in paper, sometimes I do it in OneNote. It usually starts off quickly in paper, and I'm just jotting things down, and then I'll translate it into OneNote or something like Notepad, something like that, where I can just copy, paste, move stuff around. But the important is to have a plan and an outline that takes you from point A, point B. One of the things I've learned in the 3 days I've been speaking in public is that you want to tell a story. Start off with the beginning, build up, get some content in there, get audience engagement, which is kind of hard to do when you're just doing a remote presentation like this, but get the engagement, get them bought into the story where they're interested, they want to learn. Then complete the story with an end, which is usually action items or something very similar to what you've seen in the last two presentations so far. So building out your outline takes you off to the next step, which is the rehearsal itself. Uh, so with me, I have a script that I follow. This is a sample script from one of my presentations. All of my content has that outline that I gave you on the previous slide. This one. Oh, let's go back. This slide. It has the basics outline. Then we go through and we script it out. So this script kind of covers everything I'm talking about. I start off with the title of the talk, presentation setup. These are things I need to do for this particular talk, building native mobile applications with React and JavaScript. I had a presentation set up. I needed to go back and make sure I have Node.js set up. I have this app called JSON server set up. If I'm on a Windows, because I go back and forth between Windows and Macintosh computers, I use Chocolatey and Yarn. These are steps I do. So I have a presentation script which kind of tells the story. It goes back to telling the story and being prepared. I also, if you look at my website, I have a lot of presentations I do. I think on the website there are currently 20 some odd active talks that I do, ranging in technologies and soft skills talk. It's hard to give a really good, effective presentation and be that expert that Monica talked about if you're doing so many. So I script that because even if I'm doing the same talk over and over again, there's times in between that I'm not doing anything. Like I haven't given a presentation in the current environment for probably 3 or 4 months. So even if I gave this talk 4 months ago before we started to, not be able to fly, not be able to meet in public, I would still go through this script day before, 2 days before, to make sure that I have everything that I want to bring out to the audience. And this kind of gives me a walking script. I don't memorize it because a lot of what we do, you talk about and you do as you go along, but it covers a lot of the basics. And I usually have this around just in case, especially if I'm doing code heavy talks. I'll be able to see the actual code and it will trigger something in my head to say, okay, Joe, you need to go and do this. Part of those scripts come up with a timing. So timing and rehearsals are very important when you're going through. Magnus talked about how he started his timer. I have mine right here, which kind of shows me what time it is and how much time I have left. Monica talked about hers. We all have timings. You got to remember, people are either, attending, they're paying in some way, shape, or form. They're paying with their time to be there, or they're paying with currency to be at that event. So you want to make it as cost effective as it can be for them. So you should value their time just like they should value everyone else's time. Be prepared, go through. Here I have an outline in this particular script for introduction to ASP.NET Core. I have a set of timings, as I call them. These are the topics I cover. I'm going to walk through an agenda that slides 1 through 3 of my PowerPoint slide. And that should take me on average 2 minutes and 37 seconds, let's say. Then I go through ASP.NET Core. By the time I'm done with that, I'm at my 5 minute mark. After that, I cover the why ASP.NET Core, which should cover slides 5 through 8, and then I'm at 10:14. Now, these are averages. This is not the first time you run through it, because rehearsal is important, like all the previous speakers mentioned. You're selling yourself, you're selling your experience, and you're trying to educate people. So you want to make sure you're clear and concise with what you do. If you have to stumble and look at your deck, or sorry, I forgot, and I'm going to go through the side and talk about something, you're going to lose the audience's interest, and then they're going to devalue what you're saying. I want to avoid that. So I go through these several times. I write out the basic concepts or the basic timings, and then kind of walk through that myself, whether it be with a dog or a local user group, or just talk to myself. I constantly go through them over and over again to perfect it as I'm doing it. So once I perfected the talk and I'm ready to move on to the next step, you go to what I do before the talk. There are actually quite a few things I do just before the talk. The first thing I do is get backups ready. Super, super, super in lots of different things can go wrong. Call out the CSharpCorner India conference that I went the first time. We tried out, Mahesh was in a new venue. We were trying out different things. And I remember one of the biggest problems we had was the video displays. We had one VGA cable that went into the laptop, and then about 100 feet of VGA cable to the next projector, which then daisy chained 100 feet off to the next one in the back, which is great. It was doable. Us, the room we were in allowed us to be able to. It was a quite large room. The problem was people getting up, taking over the cable. Cable would knock out one set of the screens, which, if you're on a Windows PC, would knock out other things. So the moral of that is just be prepared for whatever can go wrong. I typically have screenshots of code just in case, or screenshots of the working application just in case, like I had a screenshot of the tweet earlier. I have code backups in a lot of my demos. I am writing code from beginning to end. So I back up my code the entire time. Usually it's a point in time backup. So what I started to do was, here, this is new code. So this is where I start. And then I have a separate, if I look at my outline that I showed you earlier, I have different steps. At this step, this is the code base I'm in. This allows me to be able to go back to the code if anything else happens or anything else goes wrong in the process. Another thing to do is have a USB drive. You'll never know if your computer happens to die when you're doing it. And it's hard to, hey, that's my next point, David, about bringing the video adapters. Uh, I always have the code on USB drives or somewhere in the cloud so that if, knock on wood, I ever have an issue with my laptop, in theory, I can find another presenter that has everything that I might need and use that for it. Uh, Another thing, I wrote a blog post, a selfish plug. If you go to jjg.me/git tag, I wrote a process for speakers that I use Git that allows you to kind of checkpoint your code so you don't have to have 200 meg of source code sitting on your laptop for each stage. You can use the abilities of Git to do that versioning along. So as you're talking, yeah, I had mine die one time just before I was on an airplane, and Windows 95 decided to do an update at the time, and it was just before a talk, and I got it just up to the time of the talk, which is why backups are super important. In addition to having backups of your code, you need backups of your gear. So as David McCarter mentioned in his, I carry a bag similar to this. With all of us not traveling right now, I have it stashed away, but this bag is very similar to what I guarantee every one of the speakers that have been in this show so far, and even I know David does, have something like this. Backup VGA cable, backup DVI cable. I have from whatever laptop I'm using to VGA, DVI, HDMI, every possible video combination, because you never know what you're walking into. I have backup batteries. I have backup power cables in the event my power travel adapter dies in the middle of a talk. I have charging cables for my phone plugged in. That's my timer for it. So these are important. Yes, it's a little bit of investment, but remember, people are making an investment into you. Make an investment into your craft to be prepared and have something like this. And I'm saying go out and buy this bag right now and fill it up. As you start to do more talks, you'll realize things that you need and that you should have um, as you're going forward. Which brings me to my next step, preparing. Drink water, drink lots of water. I drink so much water that by the end of my talk, I am ready to run to the restroom to go. It's important to stay hydrated the whole time. And it's just hydrated before so that your throat is lubricated and ready to go to talk. Because the last thing you want to do is to be at your talk and start talking like this because you have no voice. You want to make sure your voice is fully lubricated so that you can change the tone of your voice, or you can laugh with the audience or cry with the audience too, depending on the story you're trying to tell. So drink lots of water, have one or two with you on stage while you're there. There's no harm in stopping for a second, taking a swig of water to do it. But if your voice is perpetually dry just prior to, you might have done yourself no good. So drink up before the talk, be ready for it. Next step is keep calm and arrive early. So it's funny, Magnus put up a talk with the person in the broken glasses, Monica put up a talk with the person checking his phone, which, by the way, you'll notice I'm not wearing a watch. One of the things I learned from Magnus 2 or 3 years ago was to not wear a watch. It's not even on my person. Uh, Arrive early. I know it's hard, but with me being what I call myself borderline OCD with things, I arrive early all the time. I'm usually in a I'm usually in the room 15 to 30 minutes early. And I do it for a couple of reasons. One is I want to see the stage that I'm working on, or whether or not I have a podium, or if I have to walk around, or if the acoustics for the room. So I'm looking at all those things so I can help myself deliver the best performances. Yes, make sure spill proofs for me. Quite true. I have yet to do that, knock on wood, but I always keep them super far away from the equipment. I'm guessing there's a story from Tech in there. Uh, Arrive early to make sure you're there. And it's not just early to get the audio, video, but there's a couple of things to do when you arrive. Get your computer ready. If you're like me, you have 1,000 different things running on your laptop. I mean, even right now, given this presentation, I have PowerPoint running. I have a slide deck notes that has all the different things I want to talk about. I have the streaming software on there. I have Twitter running. I have a lot of things running. Get those things off. Turn off any application you don't need. Turn off that virus protection. Turn off your notifications. Turn off those unneeded applications like Stream Deck or your uh, work connecting software. Get your PC ready so that it can provide the fastest response to the talk. Also, set a timer on your phone. You've seen this twice mentioned already. Set a timer, get it ready so you know. The last thing you want to do is in a 70-minute talk end at 45 minutes and tell the audience, I'm done. I got nothing. See ya. It's an instant zero on the eval for that. But show up early, get ready. Also, get yourself ready. Take off your badge. If you're wearing a conference badge, take it off when you get on stage. Take off your watch. And then remember, go. It's next part. Go. Have fun. Remember, we're not all perfect. This is going to happen. Mistakes happen. Things happen. You want to be that expert, but life happens. You're never going to be prepared. You're never going to be perfect. So don't worry about it. Don't be nervous. If you're nervous when it happens, the audience is going to see that you're nervous and think that you might not know what you're doing. Show them that you know what you're doing. I could be nervous, like I'm nervous right now, and I've given this talk many, many, many times. Funny point you brought up, Monica, with setting and starting your timer. Catherine Dollard of Microsoft PM gave me this tip one time that when she remembers to start her timer, she doesn't start it at the talk. So 10 minutes before she goes on, whenever she's doing her preparation, she starts her timer then. So she doesn't do, if like right now we have a 60-minute talk or a 30-minute talk, she does it 10 minutes too. She'll set it for 40 minutes because way too many times she's forgotten to hit start. That's it. Once you're done with the talk, don't do what some public speakers do, and that's bolt and leave. Remember, people are paying to be there. So stick around afterwards if you can. Sometimes flights come up and you have to run or have to leave. That happens, but try to avoid that. Try to be around and listen for feedback. Both Magnus and Monica mentioned to listen to your talks, rehearse your talks. Listen, I've started a live stream on Twitch 2 weeks ago. I've been recording them and listening back and forth to them to see what mistakes I'm making, what things I can do better. Is my audio okay? Are my expressions okay? Am I using my hands enough or using them too much? Listen to yourself, but listen to your audience too. Take that feedback and listen. Listening is very important. People are, in most cases, paying for you to be there. You're providing a service. Listen to your customer, your audience. Let them tell you what they got out of it, what they didn't get out of it. Work with that to help make yourself better, your talk better, and then ultimately the next experience better. But what do you do with that feedback once you get it? You continuously improve. So we work on, if you're into agile or any other software development practices, you're always trying to make ourselves better. I have one motto that I follow in life. I actually have a couple, but I want to leave this world better than it was when I arrived. So I am always looking for ways to improve myself to make everything else around me better. So I want to listen to feedback. So I'll be going through Twitter, live comments on here to see if there's anything I could have done better for this talk, as well as all the talks I do. And then what I do after I get all that feedback, I take it back and I try to implement it right away. So someone might tell me, well, your slide on backups, the colors were off. I'll go back and change that right there to see. Only because if you take your notes and write them down on a pad, and then I'm giving this talk 4 months later, I might not remember what an audience member was talking about by gray on blue. I'd have to go through all my sides. Take the notes down, go back to your hotel room or wherever you're staying. Start doing those changes right there. Rerun through it to see if that change makes sense. This allows you to grow. And if you have that script, like I talked about 4 or 5 slides ago, update that script so that next time you give it, you're implementing that feedback right away. That's all I have for us right now on slide preparation with 3 minutes left to go. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat right now. The moderators will take a look at it. You can reach out to me on any one of these mechanisms right now. Thank you. I hope you have had a great time.